All right. Hey guys, tonight we are going to be talking about our two really cool wines, things that I'm really super excited about. Some of you are already familiar with this, our CPR 6th edition. This is our perpetual wine, really rocking. Oh man, I'm so excited about this wine and hope we can continue making it for many years to come. And we're also going to be tasting our 2016 Syrah, REININGER Syrah XM. XM stands for extended maturation. So it spent a little more time in the barrel, and we'll be talking about that wine a little bit later.
Wonderful. And then, since I think we decided we were going to start off with the CPR wine, do you mind starting to talk about the whole process of CPR? And
Yeah, it's a cool concept. That's CPR. Our CPR label is what we call our no boundaries, no handcuffs wine. As most of you probably know, Reininger is dedicated to Walla Walla Valley fruit. Our Helix wines are dedicated to Columbia Valley fruit. And CPR is really just wherever our winemaking fascination takes us. And CPR, for those of you that aren't aware, are my initials, Charles Philip Reininger. And so there's no limits as to AVA boundaries. So AVA is American Viticultural Area boundaries. So we don't limit ourselves that way. And it's our special lots label. So we will produce wines. We find a particular lot of wine, grapes from a vineyard that we think are extremely special. Sometimes we'll do a varietal bottling. We've done some from Stone Tree Vineyard with Petit Verdot. We've done some from Seven Hills Vineyard with Merlot and Petit Verdot, and Cab Franc from Excel Vineyard. But it's also wherever our imagination takes us, and that's what CPR, the 6th edition, is. It's just the love of exploration of wine and adventure. And it's a perpetual wine is the easiest way to think of it. And actually, the easiest way is to think of sourdough starters. So I sometimes use the analogy San Francisco sourdough starter, which some of those can be, over 100 years old, and you use a little bit to make your sourdough. And then every time you add a little bit more to perpetuate the starter and keep it going. So that's what this wine is. It's inspired by the Solera style of winemaking, and I tongue-in-cheek call it the bastardized Solera style. So traditionally Solera is used for Madeira. It's still used for blending scotches, and some rare forms of port wines. But what it is it's a way to create consistency, but it's a non-vintage wine. And so let's just take an example. You might have, say, a stack of 10 barrels. And at the bottom of the stack, you have the oldest barrel of wine, the oldest vintage. At the top of the stack, you'll have the youngest. And so when it comes time to bottle, the bottle, say maybe 10, 15, 20% of that bottom barrel of wine, they'll bottle that. And then what they will do, they'll go to the next highest barrel on the stack, the second oldest vintage, and they will take wine from that and top off or fill the bottom barrel. So they'll replace that, say, 15% that they took out to bottle for that next oldest barrel. And they'll do that they'll just work their way back up. And they'll just keep filling the barrels up until they're all topped off. So what this does, it brings a consistency to the vintages year after year. And also you get this, a little more, well, definitely very aged blend of wine. We use that for inspiration. So with our first edition, we actually put the entire blend together in one vessel. and blended it, and then put it back to a barrel, let it age for a while, then pulled it back out of barrel, put the individual barrels back together. So we had that big vessel wine tank, if you will, of our first edition. And boy, what was that? That was, trying to remember how many vintages that was. It was 5 different grapes originally.
And 6 vintages.
Pardon me?
6 vintages. It was 2005 to 2011.
Yeah, so quick math anyways. So 7 vintages there. Anyway, so we went and bottled about 18% of that wine. And then the following vintage, we replaced that 18% of that blend with another grape and another vintage. So we've been doing that now for 6 editions. This is our 6th edition. So we just keep adding to this blend, and it's been really exciting. So our goal with it is to make the most exciting, fun, adventurous wine we possibly can with it. So for the 6th edition, we were actually up to 8 different grape varietals blended in this wine, and a total of 14 different vintages in there. So what's really fun about it is when we go to decide what are we going to blend in it, the whole idea is to make it as adventuresome and the best wine we possibly can with it. And so I used to think that we've probably topped off as far as the number of grape varietals that we're going to be blending in there. But I got some great news for this year, and that is that we, for the first time, we fermented Tempranillo this year. So Tempranillo is a Spanish grape, big, dark, can be very tannic grape. And boy, I tell you, it was so much fun learning this new grape and experiencing this new grape. What's really cool about it, I have known that trying to temper, if you will, the tannins of it. It's one of the difficult things about making this wine is trying to control the tannins, or tannin management, if you will. But you know, as it was fermenting, it was just, hey man, this is soft wine. Where's all the tannins? This isn't you know, what we were expecting. Had some really fun, wonderful flavors. And about halfway through the fermentation, we come in the morning, we do our punch downs, we do our bricks measurements and other measurements that we do to the wine, and then we tasted it. And bam, all of a sudden, man, here are all these tannins. So overnight, we had all this tannin extraction. And so it was fun playing around with it, and like I say, trying to manage those tannins so they don't become overwhelming. So just looking forward to the future anyway, that's something I can very much see becoming another element of this wine. But what's really fun about the blending of it, though, is here we have this wonderful aged wine, and we can put these new youthful elements into it. So, you know, you get this very wise, mature wine, and then we put a little bit of sophomoric craziness in it with a younger vintage, and so it always creates a lot of fun in the wine itself. So, but anyway, so that's the story and the history of this wine, and it's very unique. You don't see many wines like this. I've heard of a couple other wineries now playing around with a little more Solera style, but it's definitely unique, and hopefully we'll be able to continue making this wine for another 30 years. So it becoming a generational, multi-generational wine, which would really, really please me, but we'll see how long we can keep this wine alive in our cellar and continue to do this process. So give you a little bit of idea. Gosh, I'm trying to remember. We have about 7 different vineyards in this. This is actually, so this particular wine, you're going to have, there's going to be a little bit of that 2005 vintage that's still in this wine. So we have vineyard in here, Ash Hollow, that we no longer work with, well, no longer exists. There's actually 2 vineyards in here that no longer exist. But Ash Hollow is one of them, which was here at the west end of the Walla Walla Valley. There's Pepper Bridge Vineyard, Finney Hill Vineyard, Seven Hills Vineyard, Stone Tree, which is near Mattawa in the center of the state, and XL Vineyard, another Walla Walla vineyard that is no longer operating. So another reason to cherish this wonderful wine. This particular blend, it's 24% Cabernet Sauvignon, 8%, 5% Cabernet Franc, 13% Petit Verdot, 8% Merlot, 13% Malbec, 9% Carmenere. There's 20% Syrah and 8% Sangiovese in here. So a lot to take in, a lot to think about. And the oak on it is 93% French oak and 7% American oak. Has really amazing acidity in this wine too. It's actually 6.7 grams per liter. Typically, on average, our wines here, our red wines here at the winery, are typically more around 6.0 to maybe 6.1, 6.2, 6.2 grams of acid per liter. So the acidity in the wine gives it a real nice liveliness to it, adds to that youthfulness aspect, that youthful aspect to it. So, but yeah, it's fun. Well, I can talk about the wine a little bit more if you, little tasting notes here. The nose on it, man, you get these really intense, I don't know, dark baked fruit aspect, blackberry, cassis, blackcurrant going on in there. There's also some cigar wrapper. So, you know, cigar leaves that create the wrappers of cigars. So a little tobacco there, smokiness, a little cracked peppercorn going on. And every once in a while, it's really fun. I get some melted black licorice candy in there. So a little different than anise, which sometimes we taste in red wines. But yeah, it's just real fun. And I get some earthiness to it. The earthiness on there, kind of what I do a lot of hiking and stuff, and kind of reminds me more of the west side of the Cascade Mountains, where you get a lot of moss-covered trees anyway, and kind of you get these mother logs, that fallen down logs, and you know, smell the moss that's helping to break down the tree bark anyway. And so just gets this kind of earthy tree bark, mossy kind of earthy character to it anyway. So the nose is really, really intriguing. As it opens up, I keep finding fun things that just evolve in it and make it such an intriguing wine. And that's, you know, that's what's indicative about the character of this wine. It's so complex with all the different grape varietals, the different vintages or vineyards in there and vintages. So it's just a gift that just keeps on giving. The fun thing about the wine, though, is too, it's already aged a long time. So by the time we release it, it's usually ready to go. But you know, you can hold on to it. A lot of it, I think, you know, the first edition is still tasting wonderful. But you just have to remember that the time that it's in your cellar it's already, you know, 80% of that wine in there has some pretty good age to it. So, so don't necessarily get in your head that, hey, I can put this down for, you know, 20 years in my cellar. We don't know. It's a work in progress, and that's part of the adventure of it. You know, if you get your shipment to this wine, let it sit for a month or two before opening it. Would be the best thing to do. Let it rest. The shipping, traveling definitely shakes these bottles up in what we creates what we call bottled dumb. So, you know, the wine likes to rest and have a chance to meld back together in the bottle. So, anyway.
Hey Chuck, since this is a big blend, like when it's in the bottle, are you able to pick out like each specific varietal or even the vineyards in the CPR, or to you is it just each edition just tastes new?
Yeah, absolutely, and that actually directs us a lot of times of what we want to blend in it next time. Like the 5th edition really, I think, showed quite a bit of Carmenere in it. It was really easy for me to pick out the Carmenere. This particular edition, I'm seeing a little bit more Syrah focus anyway. That's easy for me to pick out there, and also a little bit of the Malbec. So yeah, it's fun to do that. So that was actually one of our goals, is to when we were blending the 6th edition, was to tame that Carmenere a little bit more. I liked it, but it was definitely a little bit more the dominant factor of the 5th edition, and so we want to create something that, yeah, you can find the different qualities, the different grapes in there, but we don't want something to be, you know, overly dominant. And we thought as this 5th aged, the Carmenere was just kind of right on the edge of maybe a little too much Carmenere in there. So, because it was just so easy for us to pick it out. But anyway, but so that's one of the fun things about blending it and working with it. So yeah.
Are you allowed to divulge what you might be thinking for the 7th edition?
Well, no. I have to tell you the truth. I haven't thought that too far out with it right now. So we'll see. I am looking forward to the 8th edition, because that's when we will, if we decide to put some of that Tempranillo in, that's would be the edition. I suppose we could even maybe do it for this year too, put a really young wine in there, but for the 7th edition. But so no, I haven't. Lately, there's just been so much going on. No, I haven't given a lot of thought to what we may be doing with it. So I might want to see a little bit more Malbec and and maybe even a little Petit Verdot. Anyway, maybe a little more of that going on in there. So we'll see. We'll see where it takes us. But yeah. So, but you know, the tannins on this guy are just so nice and silky on this. I just love the mouthfeel of this wine. And it has, I mentioned the acidity in it earlier too. It's just got this really nice focused acidity. And just brings this liveliness to this exciting aspect of it that I think is just a ton of fun. So, but again, I get some marinated, I call marinated dark fruits in there. So again, that black currant and blackberry in there, a little bit of mulberry, which is kind of fun. And again, that Syrah baked blueberry, which is really indicative of Syrah. And a little bit of pepper. The pepper can be coming from several different places. That can be coming from the Syrah. Sometimes Cabernet Sauvignon will have a little bit of pepper in it, but probably more from the Syrah, maybe in the Carmenere too. We always get that wonderful cracked peppercorn from the Carmenere. So anyway, there's just hints of that going on, and I think some really wonderful savory spice going on in there too. A little coriander, oregano, and there's also a little underlying hints of smoke going on in there too. So, and the finish too on this guy, just really long, protracted, dark fruit finish with a little bit of savoriness. Man, in the finish, there's just a lot of little nuances happening. You just kind of keep finding, new stuff in the finish between the little savory herbalness to it and the dark fruit. And it just goes. So, like I say, this is such a cool wine, and so much fun for us to work with. And this is one of the things that just makes winemaking so much fun and so exciting for us. And it just compels us to keep moving forward, and we just love seeing what we can do with it, vintage after vintage. So when it comes to blending, boy, we get to the Chima. These are the wines that we really, really, truly have a lot of fun with, and thoroughly enjoy it. So, all right. Well, how about thoughts on this wonderful 6th edition CPR? You guys have any thoughts? Anything you want to throw in there and contribute?
Well, I have a question, since you were talking about all these different foods or fruit notes that you were smelling and herbs, and with Thanksgiving being next week, with Thanksgiving being next week, what would you pair this wine with for the Thanksgiving table?
Yeah, well, the CPR, I think I would actually put it more with, depending on what you're doing, but oftentimes, people don't always do turkey. So, but if you do some more, gosh, what am my brain, I'm trying to, gosh. We often have it ourselves. I'm just spacing out on the name of the cut. Anyway, yeah. So if you're going a little bit more beef or darker game bird, the CPR 6th edition. I don't know if I'd necessarily put it with the turkey though. So, yeah, it's. So if you're going more a little red meat, I think this would be a great one to go with it.
Chuck?
Yeah.
How much has the overall flavor and taste profile of the current wine modified away or stayed similar to previous editions?
Oh, I think it's actually changed dramatically. Oh, yeah, sorry, hearing a little echo here. It's changed dramatically. I think it's quite a bit different than the 5th edition. And so, like I say, we kind of steered it away, trying to bury a little bit more of that Carmenere in there. So the 5th edition is a little spicier than the 6th edition. And I really love the way the silkiness, the mouthfeel of this wine too, and also those herbal savory notes that we're getting in this wine. And I like also, along with those savory notes, that little bit of tobacco that goes with it too. All that to me just really makes this a really super nice complex wine, but yet it just has a wonderful silky texture to it, and the tannin structure that to me is just makes it such a fun, elegant wine, and the acidity to it helps add to that liveliness and that fun aspect of it. And And so to me, it's a very, what I call a cognitive wine. I can sit down and think about it a lot and just keep thinking about it because there's so many things to explore in this. And so for me, that makes it just a super, super fun wine to taste. So, all right. Anything else there?
Well, so in the chat, we have people saying, well, the wine is the main course. Turkey is the obvious sides. And a couple people have suggested like beef Wellington and other things that they're having Thanksgiving dinner, kind of agreeing with you on those red meats. So, I mean, people just, they seem to be excited. Before we switch over to the Syrah, do you mind talking a little bit, or I'm happy to, about the CPR allocation, since that is fairly new for us at the winery?
Well, actually, you're probably a better one to answer that question than me. But yeah, we make such a limited amount of this wine. So it's important to be on the CPR list in order to get it, because it's really pretty much the only place you're going to find it. Occasionally, we might have a couple bottles here in the winery at the tasting room, but no, being part of that CPR allocation list, that's the important thing. And sometimes we don't have enough to, do a full allocation all the way around. And so whether you receive a full allocation is determined by really where you are on that list. So I don't know, do you have anything else that you want to talk about and add to any comments?
Not really. I guess that CPR, for those of you who don't know, it was launched in 2014 with that first edition Chuck was talking about. But we didn't actually launch its own allocation list until last year. So we've only had 1 or 2 shipments so far. It's a September release. And then whatever's left over goes to Wine Club afterwards. And I believe Brad, our tasting room manager, told me a couple days ago, we have about 14 cases left. So like Chuck was saying, we don't typically have a lot of it. This year, maybe more than we would expect just with everything going on with COVID. But yeah, very low case production. I think he only did what, 95 cases, 96?
Yeah, I'm sorry, how much we made? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Sorry, I got some wine cooler noise going on here in the background. Yeah, we believe, I think it was 96 cases is what we produced of it.
So we probably have enough to get us through the next few winter months, but then the 7th edition won't come out until September of next year. And I know people always ask me about library wines. I think we only have like 3 or 4 bottles of the 2nd edition. And to my knowledge, that's the only CPR we have in library available.
All right. Well, cool. Well, let's move on to the Syrah XM. There we go. See if I can. All right, I see the Finns have some Syrah XM, and Greg, you have some too. All right, and RJ, oh, you got an older Syrah. Was it 2014? Oh, that's cool. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much. It's fun seeing out these Syrahs out here. So the older Syrahs. So Syrah, as you guys know, is one of my most favorite wines to work with. There's just so many gorgeous, wonderful nuances to it, and the style of Syrah that I particularly like is a little more Northern Rhone style, with emphasizes more baked blueberry flavor profile. Syrah is an interesting grape in that sometimes it will be more of an emphasis on cherry flavor profile, and and earth. I particularly like say the more baked blueberry, a little bit of spice, smokiness, earthiness going on there, and that's more northern Rhone, Hermitage, Côte-Lôtie. So really fun wine to work with. One of the things that why I think it's so intriguing, Syrah so intriguing, probably more than almost any other varietal, it will express its terroir more than just about any varietal. So depending on what type of soil, whether it's in stones, clay, sand, it will adapt, and the flavors will change and reflect its soil type, like say more than just about any other grape varietal. So it's fun, intriguing wine, and it's a very complex wine too, and that's why we don't put any new oak on it, and because there's so many wonderful little nuances, guys. That I know you've heard this a million times, but you know that new oak will have a tendency to roll over those wonderful Syrah nuances with a logging truck, and so our goal here is to really show off the grape itself and just really show its true nobility and how complex, and show its true character. We're trying to show off the grape itself, not what we can do as winemakers, what flavors we can add via oak and other processes. So it's all about showing off the Syrah. So the Syrah XM was really fun project in that, again, playing around. We wanted to just play around, figure out, okay, what will happen with Syrah if we leave it in barrel a little bit longer, and it's so that's what that XM stands for, extended maturation. So extended cellar maturation. So this is actually a rebottling of our 2016 Syrah. We only made 115 cases of this, so basically it's 4 barrels of Syrah, and we said, well, let's let it age a little bit longer. And boy, I'm sure glad we did. It's a kick-ass wine, man. It is so much fun. And man, what's changed from the 2016? So if any of you are fortunate to have a bottle of the regular, original 2016, the wine is it's bigger and more concentrated, and so sometimes earlier it kind of had a little more rustic palate to it, mouthfeel to it, but I think that has actually changed and is turned into a real luscious mouthfeel. And so it's kind of like when it first hits my palate anyway, I'll get a little bit more hit of wood tannin. But some of this was actually co-fermented with Viognier skins too. So on the nose, with this wine, we get the typical floral aspects of it. Get lilac and lavender happening and going on in there. One thing I'm not getting, I think in the 2016, I recall getting a little more violet in there also, but just get these really beautiful floral, kind of a tar, when I say a tar, just perfumey, beautiful floral aspects to it. And I also get a real kick of the blueberry I was talking about. So baked blueberry going on in there in the nose, real concentrated blueberry. But so the nose, again, it's just really intriguing. You can just really get these concentrated scents going on in there, and get a little bit of that underlying smokiness and earthiness to it too. And that's a little more nuance in it, but.
Talking a little bit more about this particular, the XM, because you use the phrase rebottling, and I guess talking about how we kept some barrels aside and we didn't bottle everything of the 2016 vintage.
It's 2016. Yeah, like I say, we didn't. There was 4 barrels that we decided to put aside on it. Again, this is kind of this adventuresome kind of place that we take ourselves sometimes, and like I say, we wanted to learn. Okay, how if we put a little bit more age on the Syrah, what is that going to do to it? So again, it's just taking ourselves to a new realm, and we weren't exactly sure what to expect, but something that we wanted to do. Again, it was just a wonderful, wonderful wine to begin with, and so we thought, well, this would be a good vintage to do it with. And so 2016 was one of my favorite Syrahs that we've ever produced. So yeah, we're just always trying to push the boundaries and trying to learn something new. That's how we learn. If we don't do it, we're never going to learn about it. So that's why we're doing the XM. So, but and the palate on this, one of the things that it seems to have concentrated the wine a little bit more, and the palate seems in some ways a little more chewy, but yet there's this real lusciousness to it too. It doesn't have a what I want to say, the acidity on it. If we look at the numbers, it has good acid to it, 6.5 grams per liter, which is a little surprising to me because typically it's not that high. But when I taste the wine, I don't sense that, other than there is kind of like a juicy aspect. It makes me salivate a tiny bit. So I don't really sense the acidity, but the effects of this acidity through kind of creating a little more juiciness in the palate for me, that's where I experience it. Again, I can sense a tiny bit more wood tannin in this as compared to the regular 2016 bottling of it. But I just find this is really fun underlying smoky character to it, which is really indicative of Syrah itself too. Syrah is known, the grape itself actually has oftentimes a smoky character to it. And it's funny because, or I should say interesting, when they analyze it, over the years, they've noticed this, and the grape, and when they've actually analyzed the grape and the wine itself, it has more of those, the compounds or molecules that actually create smoke flavor, if you will, and that will typically come from the barrel, or if we have lots of forest fires around, smoke tank. But the grape actually naturally produces some of these chemical compounds that will actually give it that inherent smokiness to it. So you could do this in stainless steel, never see oak whatsoever, and toasted oak barrels, and we'll have that smokiness to it. So that's one of the fun thing about Syrah. Remember, I was telling you about that wonderful, natural, wonderful, beautiful character and those nuances. Well, that's one of them. You start putting it in brand new oak. Well, that toasted oak character starts overwhelming the natural smokiness, if you will, of the wine. So, but yeah, so on the palate anyway, I get this, not only do I get the baked blueberry going on in there, but there's also, to me, I get some boysenberry happening in there, and get, again, a little bit of that earthiness to it and that smoke, and I also get a hint sometimes of I'll just get just a real fine hint sometimes of a little bit of thyme in it. And also at times, not all the time, not all the time, but every once in a while to just get these little nuanced hints of pepper going on in here too. So, but to me, it's a really beautifully balanced wine, and but it's just very silky and elegant, and man, I'm so excited and glad that we did this. This is definitely one of my favorite wines. This is fun night for tasting, because these are two of my favorite wines that we have for sale right now at the winery. So the vineyards on this, it's all Walla Walla Valley. So it's Pepper Bridge fruit in Seven Hills, and it's 53% Seven Hills. 53% Pepper Bridge. It's kind of opposite, I think it was 2017. So it's 53% Pepper Bridge Vineyard and 47% Seven Hills. So, and the vintage itself too, 2016 was kind of another in a long line of, or string of very warm vintages. So we were harvesting the Syrah a little bit earlier here. Syrah is the only grape that doesn't shut down when it gets too hot. All the other grape varietals, during the summer temperatures get above 95, 98 degrees, the grapes will actually shut down. The photosynthesis will shut down. It's all in an effort to conserve moisture, and but Syrah doesn't. So when other varieties will shut down until it cools off a little bit more, the photosynthesis ceases, the grapes aren't ripening, they're not advancing, but the Syrah does. So we'll see the Syrah actually catching up with varieties such as Merlot. This year was another warm vintage, and plus with the smoke inhibiting the visible light, if you will. We saw the same thing this year. We're actually harvesting Syrah. At Seven Hills, we harvested Syrah the same days we did Merlot. That used to be an anomaly, but gosh, I think that's happened 3 out of the last 5 vintages now here. So, yeah, we never used to see that at all. So Syrah would always be about a week later than the Merlot. But so anyway, like I say, I'm really excited about this wine. This is a wonderful, awesome Syrah, and I couldn't be more proud of it. And what the team here at the winery has done with it, and I think it was a very successful adventure anyway. Doing this XM version of our Syrah. So we're learning a lot.
Chuck, someone asked about the alcohol, which is a very good question. I think just a discussion in general. The 2016 Syrah XM, we are marketing that it is 15.1% ABV, but original 2016 Syrah, we had on the bottle that it was 14.9. Could you talk a little bit about that 0.2% difference?
And that comes from that extended barrel maturation. So when the wine is in the cellar, in the barrels anyway, either water or alcohol will evaporate out of the barrels. The wood barrels are porous. So depending on the humidity in the barrel room, we'll either get water or alcohol evaporating out. So if you have high humidity, it will be alcohol. So you can actually lower the alcohol in the wine if you have a high humidity, say up around 90% humidity in the barrel room. Problem with that, you get a lot of mold issues in the barrel room, and we don't like that, because that can lead to formation of TCA, which is which gives you corked wine. So we don't want that. And so it all depends on how much humidity. If it has a little lower humidity, you'll find more water evaporating out rather than alcohol. And so that will concentrate the wine and actually increase the alcohol content in it when it's water evaporating out of the wine rather than alcohol. So I hope that makes sense to people.
I think so, yes.
The barrel room is always trying to find an equilibrium as far as humidity goes. So if you have, if there's lower humidity in the barrel room, say 65% humidity in it, water will evaporate out of the barrels trying to add more humidity into the barrel room. And so if you already have a high humidity, like say 90% or so in the barrel room, well, that barrel room the atmosphere isn't really looking so much for water. So therefore you'll get the alcohol evaporating out. So it's all about equilibrium.
Like the CPR, what are your food pairing suggestions with this? I know Rhone wines are very common for Thanksgiving.
And I tell you, now here we go back to the Thanksgiving stuff now. If you guys, this would be an excellent Thanksgiving dinner, especially if you have any kind of game. Just about my absolute most favorite thing to pair this with is wild duck. As long as it's cooked properly and isn't too dry. But yeah, if you have pheasant, duck, goose, any of that, it goes wonderfully with pork as long as you don't spice it up too much. And I think it also actually is a red wine that goes nicely with the turkey too, especially you get that homemade cranberry sauce going on and stuff with it. And some of the darker meat in the turkey. Yeah, this is a wine I think that can make an excellent Thanksgiving holiday wine. And plus the earthiness and those goes with the fall flavors. I mean, you're talking butternut squash soup or carrot parsnip soup. This is a red wine that can go with those soups as well. So, Syrah is definitely Syrah and Viogniers. We're talking whites. Man, those are definitely holiday wines. So yeah.
Wonderful. Perfect. And for, I guess my suggestions, actually, for those of you on Facebook or Instagram, I have a post going out tomorrow about the Syrah XM and what I would likely be pairing with it for Thanksgiving.
Yeah, what are you to be pairing with it?
I focused more on the sides because that's, for me, that's what Thanksgiving is all about. So I was recommending actually a couple different recipes that we've done in the past. We had this stuffing recipe that we sent to our wine club members years ago that had onions and mushrooms in it that I was highly recommending.
Stuffing with mushrooms. Oh,
yes.
Absolutely.
I do have a question shifting gears, and that's if you don't mind talking about just the extended barrel maturation almost project that we did this year. 6 out of the 7 new wines that we released did see extended barrel aging, and if you wouldn't mind talking about them.
Well, gosh, we had that many?
We did. If you're including the Chardonnays.
Really? Pardon me?
If you include the Chardonnay.
Yeah. Yeah, no, we, it's been new. Well, obviously the biggest is the Chima, that we do, but we also did a Merlot, extended maturation. No, it's fun just to, I squirrel away a few barrels here and there just to have fun with things. And that's the whole purpose behind it is, we'll put our blends together, and if we have something that's exceptional, that sometimes a little extra barrel maturation will be fun to it. Like say it can add to the mouthfeel to it. Actually, I don't think I talked about that so much, but I think, describe this as being a little chewier, but yet that lusciousness to it. No, it has to be the right wines too. It's really important is the vintage itself too, because they have to be strong vintages. And what I mean by that is that we have to be able to get a lot of extraction out of the grapes itself. So it has to have the fruit components, enough concentration of fruit in there, and has to have a decent tannin structure to it, so for the barrel aging. Otherwise, what can happen is if we get too much of an oak component in the wine itself, and actually starts overwhelming that fruit. So if we have, like say, lower fruit extraction in the wine, we'll start losing that balance. That oak component can start overwhelming it. So we want to be careful with it from the standpoint that any oak that is added to it has to be balanced out and not overwhelm the varietal character of the grape itself. And that's why we need that, like say, concentration of fruit character and varietal character in the wines themselves. So some years when we get that, hey, it's fun to go ahead and put in the barrel a little bit longer. What happens is, not only do we talk about that evaporation aspects of it and concentrating the wine itself a little bit more, but we also get these micro-oxygenation, and so we have the chemistry component of it too, and so that's going on in there with the oxygen, so it can give it more mouthfeel to it, and also you get more polymerization of the tannins. In other words, the tannins and tartrates and things linking up, they become larger and larger molecules, and that's how we get the smoother, silkier mouthfeels, if you will. So it's when those tannins start really linking up and creating, instead of having shorter tannin molecules, which will have more bitterness to them, when those tannin molecules are able to polymerize, in other words, chain up, and they become longer and longer molecules and bigger molecules, then that's where you start really getting the silkiness and smoothness of the tannin structure anyway in the wine. So there's lots of different things going on with it. But again, the main thing though when choosing the wine to do this with is that it has to have enough fruit concentration, enough phenolic concentration in order to have this extended barrel maturation. So we're not going to see that in all vintages. So like the 2010, 2011 vintages would not have been good candidates for this. They're cooler vintages, and so we didn't have the phenolic extraction. So the years where we have smaller berries, thicker skins, where we're able to get better concentration of extraction out of it, those are the candidates that we can do things like this with. So.
And just to kind of quickly list the wines for people. So obviously we have the Syrah XM and then the Merlot XM, both of which we released in October to our wine club members. The Merlot is under the Helix label. In the springtime, we did actually a 2014 Carmenere under the CPR label, and rumor has it we might have some other vintages of that coming out.
Actually, we're going to have a series. We have 3 vintages that we're going to be little extended barrel maturation with Carmenere. So.
The We had a couple Chardonnays that we did. We've always done an oaked or a French oaked Chardonnay under the Reiniger label. This was the first year we moved it to CPR, but then we did a 2015 oaked Chardonnay under the Helix label. And the next big one that myself, Kristen, and Lisa have probably been talking to all of you guys about lately, because it's in the December club shipment, is the 2012 Tahoma. If you don't mind talking about that one briefly, Chuck.
Yeah, the Tahoma, man, this is another really fun, cool wine. It's a sister wine to Chima, and Chima is a wine that is barrel aged for 6 years. It's a super Tuscan blend, so it's traditionally roughly about 50% Sangiovese and 50% Bordeaux blend, Bordeaux grapes. And so what we decided to do is make a wine called Tahoma. So Chima, the name Chima is in Italian means summit or peak. And Tahoma, this wine actually pays homage to Mount Rainier. Mount Rainier is a very special place for me. I used to live and work up there on Mount Rainier, and Tahoma is the indigenous Americans or Native American name for Mount Rainier. And in fact, if you look at Mount Rainier and you see this little peak on the north shoulder of the mountain, that's the name of that. It's called Little Tahoma. And so it has the same label as the Chima, except it's in white rather than black. And again, we use these little delta mountains that we create our little abstract map of the mountains of Washington State on the label. We take those little delta mountains and put them in a formation that looks like Mount Rainier. It's got the little crater in the top. I think Abby's running out to get a bottle of it. I don't know if I have a bottle here, but anyway, it's similar to, the Tahoma is similar to the Chima. The blend's a little bit different, but it is a super Tuscan blend. And it's actually 8 years in the barrel. And it's really another phenomenal wine. Gosh, man, I just love it. So, and there's a wine where I think we took it to the limit for that wine as far as how much oak is on that wine. And it is beautiful. It is, you definitely get the oak in that wine, but it does not overwhelm the character of the wine itself, and so the fruit is still just really shines, and it's just really beautifully oaked on it. So, oh, there you go. There's somebody's got a Chima right there. Oh, it's a Fins. Thank you very much. So yeah, you can see that pattern there. The lower part of the mountain has the white delta mountains or triangles on it, and the upper part is in gold. So there you go. Well, thank you.
Sorry, I just went and I thought I had one, but it was the Sangiovese Grosso. So very close, but.
The magnum of the Chima right here. So you see the Tahoma was in the white label. And so this is our Chima label right there. So, and you see over here on the side, you can see Little Tahoma is even depicted there. So when you're driving along, for those of you that live in Washington State, if you live on the east side, you look at Mount Rainier, it's going to be on the right shoulder, the right side of Mount Rainier. If you live on the west side, it's going to be on the left side. So, yeah. And so that's another, like say, super fun project that we've had on that, and it's really fun. We love putting the two bottles together, two sister wines there. So yeah, fun stuff. Well, my goodness, we've just the privilege of tasting these wines with you has just been so much fun and great, because they're two of my favorite wines, and I really super appreciate you guys joining us here this evening.